Hello and welcome to the Tomcast. I'm Tom, President and Dictator for Life of 515comics.com. This week I have been working on the very important project of writing Chapter 20 of Nextuus. It seems to happen pretty regularly that as I am working my way through a written chapter of the script, I kind of don't realize how close to the end of the chapter I am until I only have a few pages left, and then it's time to write the next script. Now, I've talked a little bit about how I do writing for the comic before, but just as a quick recap, basically I have kind of a skeleton sort of timeline of events that are going to happen in the comic with some major things kind of plotted out. And then each chapter, before I start drawing any pages for it, I just write out the script for a chapter. And it ends up being about as long as it needs to be to get the point across and have kind of a good pause or a good ending point for the chapter before I move on to a very different scene or a different part of the story. Anyway, so it's not like I'm like, oh no, I gotta write a new chapter and I don't know what to write about. I mean, I know what's gonna happen next in the story already, so that makes it not too distressing. But I do always kind of stress myself out because it's like, oh man, I've only got like 3 or 4 more updates until it's time to start drawing pages for a chapter I don't have a script for yet. I've started chapter 20 and I've got the chapter mostly fleshed out. I just need to work on the actual ending of the chapter. But it's at a point where I would be comfortable starting it if I needed to. Now, I haven't run it past Trey yet, who is, of course, Professor Trey, my co-writer and editor. I'm not in crisis mode. If I had to, I could go ahead and start doing some pages, and it would not be a big deal. Thinking about Chapter 20, I was thinking about it a little bit today, about how the end of Chapter 20 will be the end of the 4th book, if I keep doing books the way I have, where I'm actually letting out a collected volume of 5 chapters at a time. That got me thinking a little bit about, well, what all is going to happen in Chapter 20 and kind of what has happened between Chapters 16 and Chapters 20. And so it just, I don't know if I've talked about this on the show before or not, but it just sort of brought up the interesting idea of like theming books. Because the first book, kind of the theme there, I mean, it's an introduction, of course, but also it's kind of like it begins, Chapter 1 has 115 meeting Arik thinking he would be a good fit for their team, but then, until the end of Chapter 5, we don't know if 115 is actually going to be a member of the team or not. The Chapter 5 ends, and Book 1 ends with Randall saying, yep, okay, you can be a part of the team. So that's kind of got this nice little theme where it's like there's several chapters that have 115 in them, and it's kind of up in the air about whether he's going to be on the team or not, and then at the end, yay, he is, huzzah. Chapters 6 through 10, we kind of introduce the third storyline of John and Katya, and with Chapter 10, we actually see that, hey, at the end of Chapter 10, all 3 of these stories, the Treasure Hunters, the Nyx team, and also John and Katya, are all going to collide. And, chapters 11 through chapters 15 are basically the results of that collision and then the fallout of what happens after that. And I guess chapters 16 through 20 are sort of like the restructuring, the treasure hunters taking stock of what happened when John and Katya brought this other storyline into line with their own story and what's going, what do they have to do now? And so I guess 20 effectively is going to put a little bit of a cap on that. It's worked out kind of well, I think. I've always had pretty decent ending points. And, I don't really, again, how I write the chapters is kind of fluid. So I don't really plan to like, oh, this is going to be a really good way for this chapter to end. It's just as I'm writing, it's like, man, this would be a pretty good place to stop. So, again, I don't have Chapter 20 done, but I'm hoping that that however I end it, it's like, well, that seems like a pretty good place to end a book, because that's pretty much how it's going to work out. I hope that all of my chapters have some closure in them, or at least some cliffhanger, be like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? But, again, like I say, it's not structured in chapter format. I just happen to like doing chapters. It's one big long story, and it just jumps around from time to time, so it might not always be so nice, but so far I've been pretty lucky. And anyway, I'm really excited so far about how Chapter 20 is shaping up. I want to thank you guys for reading the comic, if you do. and for watching this show. I hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll see you around. Also, I don't usually make a big deal out of this kind of stuff, but my comic was featured on TV Tropes, kind of. I don't know who put it on TV Tropes, but I'm really excited that it's there. I'll put a link down below to where you can find it. It's just in the webcomics tab on this page. And there's not actually a page on TV Tropes for my comic, but the Wayward Cry from my comic are mentioned. And I'm really happy about that. I think that's awesome. So if you guys don't know what TV Tropes is, go check that out. It's a fun way to waste a lot of time on the internet. So anyway, see ya.